Coming up on today's Locked On Senators. Stop me if you've heard this before, but Josh Norris is nearing a return to the lineup.
And it's been a long time coming, but we have Shawn Simpson, Simmer, joining the show today.
Going to be a really fun conversation with him, catching up. We also have a contentious poll on our Twitter regarding Shane Pinto. So we'll get into all that and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 896 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. A reminder, you can follow Locked On Senators on social media at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where a like, a subscription, a comment, they all go a long way to helping the show grow. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Today is Tuesday, October 17th, and Pilsy, for the first time this season, Josh Norris is taking line rushes with players who are actually expected to play.
Yeah, as far as the Josh Norris story goes, this is a big step, and it's not him playing with a defense partner. It's not him as a winger on the fourth line. He is centering Dominik Kubalik and Drake Batherson, which would be a probable line for him. And on top of that, he is also practicing with the top power play unit where he's been known to be before. So certainly Josh Norris is nearing a return. I'm not willing to come out and say Josh Norris is finally going to play tomorrow, Wednesday, but this is a good sign.
If we find out tomorrow, we'll record right after the morning skate. If we find out that he can play tomorrow, Pilsy, I'll let you announce it.
All right, thank you. I need that.
Now, one centerman comes back into line rushes. One center is out. Tim Stützle.
Oh, no.
A maintenance day for Timmy Superstar. We're seeing some people on Twitter mentioning he took a shot off the foot in Sunday's game and limped to the bench. I missed that with all that was going on. But, hey, he finished the game, so good on him. So if he's just sore, take the day off. You don't want to, have him, trying to push things this early in the season. Just let it heal up. And DJ Smith says he'll be ready to go tomorrow. So those are the practice notes. But Pilsy, more importantly, you like the line combination with Kubalik? We know he plays well with Drake Batherson. Those two made magic over the last number of years. But I think Kubalik and him, two shooters, I'm curious to see how that works out.
No, I like the line, Ross, mostly because I'm not about to break up Joseph, Greg, and Tarasenko. Like, that line has looked good. They've all been clicking. So that's a line I would like to keep together. I'm not about to break up the top line either. So where does that leave him? A third line center spot with a team that has an unsigned third line center. So that's not the worst spot for Josh Norris. And I think the thing with this is Drake Batherson is the kind of player that has the ability to drive a line. Kubalik is a guy that, Ross, you famously say Kubalik does not like having the puck on his stick. He gets it off pretty quickly. So he's a shooter. And we know, of course, Josh Norris is also a shooter. So if you can have Drake Batherson doing everything he can to set those guys up, I think that could be a line that could have success. Now, it all comes down to how strong is Josh Norris's shoulder actually. Like, he's been skating for God knows how long, so the feet should be up to a regular season speed here, but where's that shoulder really at?
Outside of the fourth line, the only two forwards without a point this season are Dominik Kubalik and Drake Batherson. So they're tied with Josh Norris when it comes to points. So hopefully that can get them going. I thought Batherson did have some good offensive plays holding on to pucks, but obviously nothing's gone in for him this year so far. And that Greg Joseph Tarasenko line has been been really, really impressive through the first 2 home games. And even in that first game, Joseph got them on the board early against Carolina. So I don't mind this setup, man. Obviously, you don't want Parker Kelly on the top line. He's the one who's placeholder for Tim Stützle, but moving over to the wing, they had Brady Tkachuk in the middle, maybe practicing his D zone and neutral zone draws. 10 of his 12 faceoffs have been in the O zone this year for Brady Tkachuk, but yeah, all things considered, man, this looks like a nice little lineup. And DJ Smith also mentioning after practice, Sanderson and Zub will be going up against the Ovechkin line as often as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, they're the shutdown pair, and they've done really well together. Ian Mendez did an article talking with Artem Zub, and Zub was saying, yeah, it's great to play with Jake Sanderson. Kind of basically the a shortened version, as English is Zub's second language, but a more concise version of what Travis Hamonic was saying all last year. Like, the guys are stoked to be playing beside Jake Sanderson, and you can't blame them.
No, and that's going to be a tough test because Alex Ovechkin historically, and we'll get into a full game day
pretty good
tomorrow, but he dominates the Ottawa Senators.
Yes.
And he scores milestone goals. I think he scored his 500th goal against them. I think he scored his 600th goal against them. Or there was another milestone goal that he got past Ottawa. Was it when he passed? Not second, but I think he passed someone in the top 5 because I want to say, and I could be wrong, I feel like the whole bench cleared out for him.
I think it was one of those moments, Ross, you just know he's going to break the scoring record, scoring a hat-trick goal up against the Senators. You know it's going to happen.
Seriously. So Ottawa's got to be careful. And Washington did get a shootout win last night. Hey, just quickly, and we can chirp Kuznetsov a little bit more tomorrow. But like,
I knew you were going to say something here.
He's back to his old tricks. This guy takes 35 seconds to come in on shootout.
Do you like shootouts, Ross, or not?
I hate shootouts.
Yeah, man, I think it was Markstrom on the play. If you're Markstrom as a goalie, that's so frustrating. Like, come on, like, get it going here. But if it works and it's not against the rules, I don't blame him for doing it.
Okay. I just think it's a joke.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks, but it works.
And Alex Ovechkin scored his 803rd goal passing Gordie Howe against the Ottawa Senators. So that's what it was.
Yep. That sounds about right.
So there you have it.
We'll get to that later, though. Yes.
Yes, we'll have a full game day preview, and we'll do our locked on players. But man, like, you're starting to see what could become a really good team here with the Ottawa Senators. And because tomorrow, I mentioned we're going to record after we already know the answer. Who starts in goal for you tomorrow, Pilsy? Joonas Korpisalo or Anton Forsberg?
I'd like to get Korpisalo in here. I know he's already played 2 of the 3 games, but personally, I think you need to give goalies a chance to get in the groove of things, and alternating goalies back and forth, even if they're getting wins and playing well, I don't think is a long-term recipe for success. And Korpisalo, he's slated to be the 1A guy of this tandem. So I'd like to give him a bit of a stretch here to try to get into the groove of things. So I'm going Korpi.
Okay, I'm on the other side of the argument, man. I think Anton Forsberg played really well in the game on Saturday, the home opener, and I think he deserves another look here. Otherwise, you're going to wait till Saturday, and then that's a full 7 days in between games for Anton Forsberg. I mean, it'd be 6 otherwise for Korpisalo, the back-to-back, and then only 1 game during the week. But still, I think you compound that with the fact that Korpisalo's had 2 games already and Forsberg's had the 1. I think you just alternate and let them get into a rhythm. There's going to be some times later in the year where you're going to have a condensed schedule, and maybe then you can kind of ride a hot hand. But with 2 days in between games on either end of this Washington game, it's not like they're going to carry momentum from one game. It's not like day on, day off, day on, day off. They're going to have an extra practice day or rest day. So I go with Forsberg and then rotate, and then have Korpisalo start against Detroit on Saturday afternoon.
Either way is a good answer. Let me say that to wrap this argument up. Like, if they play Forsberg, that's fine. Because like you said, like, either one goalie's getting 7 days off or 6 days off. So there's not really an advantage either way. And both of them have played well enough for me here.
One more this or that. Who do you scratch if Josh Norris is back in the lineup? Is it Parker Kelly? Is it Rourke Chartier? Is it Mark Kaslick? Is it Zach McEwen?
I mean, like, if you're just looking at all those names and ranking them, it'd be Zach McEwen for me. I don't think he needs to be in that lineup up against Washington. because I've liked Rook Chartier's game. He's played with a lot of effort. Parker Kelly has been very noticeable early on. And then Casti, sure, he hasn't looked that great, but when you're snapping him back at 68% in the faceoff dot, that's a very valuable guy to have, even if he's only playing 7 minutes a night. So McEwen's the odd man out, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair. We'll find out tomorrow. As we mentioned, Locked On Senators, your daily home for all things Ottawa Senators. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. One thing I love to let people know is that we have local shows on every single team. So tomorrow, go check out Dan Holme with Locked On Washington Capitals and get the view from the other side. The other side of the break, we've got Shawn Simpson. Simmer is on the show. We're excited to have a good chat with him coming up. And on the other side, we saw the lineup, Pillsy. No Shane Pinto still. The We Want Pinto chants were raining down at the CTC this weekend. But who really has the leverage in that situation? That's all next. You're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Ross, we scored your family tickets to Sunday's game up against the Tampa Bay Lightning using the Game Time app.
And they're going on Wednesday as well. And I said, hey,
no way.
Dad created the account the first time. I said, Mom, you create the account, use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and get that $20 off.
Take advantage of it. That's why we're here to tell you all about the best ticket site, the official ticketing partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Don't be stressed buying tickets. Game Time makes it easy. Keep the hype going. And Game Time has tickets not only for hockey, but football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price as well. In fact, if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% difference. Get the images of your seat before you buy so you know that there's not a handrail in your way. There's not a big pole. You're not in a spot. You don't want to be the logos facing the right way if you're Ross Levitan. That's the Game Time extra. And you can buy your tickets in a matter of seconds. Just 2 taps, 1, 2, and boom, the tickets are sent directly to your phone. So snag tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account just like Ross's dad did, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Athletic Greens. I just finished my Athletic Greens about 10 minutes ago. I drink it in the morning all the time. Now, what is AG1? It's the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. You drink it every single day. 1 scoop into your water, that's it. I started drinking it because I wanted to change the way I felt every day. I wanted more energy. I wanted more, nutrients in my body to help fight off different viruses. It's that time of year. All great athletes have one thing in common. Not saying I'm one, but they take care of their bodies, and you can too. A huge part of that starts with optimizing whole body health. A lot of them also drink AG1. That's one of the reasons I'm a huge fan. With every daily serving, I'm setting myself up for success. AG1 has 75 high-quality ingredients that give me daily nutrients and support energy, focus, strength, and clarity. It's a micro habit that delivers macro benefits and helps just about everybody take care of their body. So, if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Those travel packs are awesome. I brought them to Ottawa, easy to use, in your cup of water, and bang, you're ready to go. So go get yours today. drinkag1.com/NHL network. That's drinkag1.com/NHL network. Go check it out.
And we got to tell you about our newest local sponsor. It's Mary J's, a locally owned cannabis dispensary in the Ottawa area. It's 3 best friends that made a life-changing decision. They slept on their air mattress on the floor of the sales room just to make ends meet and achieve their dream. And now they have 4 stores in the Ottawa area. The locations are Riverside South, Orleans, Greeley, and Russell. You can check either of those locations out because Mary J's offers the best and newest products in the market with many new additions to the menu every single week. Mary J's has everything you need, whether you're a savvy vet, or you're a rookie looking to try out new products, Mary J's has what you want. They offer competitive pricing as well. In fact, they're going to price match any store in Ottawa. That means you are guaranteed to get the best price around at any Mary J's location. Mary J's offers the best customer service around by having the friendliest bud tenders who are always ready to help out. One of the owners, Dashy, great guy. He's a diehard Sens fan. His favorite number is 18. Not for Tim Stützle, but for Marian Hossa. That's how long he's been a Sens fan for. So go to one of the stores, say what up to Dashy, and pick his brain about the Sens and chat about all the best products at Mary J's.
All right, now time for our chat with Sens radio legend. It's Shawn Simpson. All right, we now welcome on a very special guest. It's been a long time coming, to say the least. I got the chance to work with this legend briefly for a couple World Junior broadcasts. He's a former goalie turned broadcaster who's never afraid to have an opinion. Pleasure to welcome Shawn Simpson to Locked On Senators. Simmer, great to chat with you. How are things, man?
Oh, excellent. After 4 months of not doing a whole lot, got lots of opinions. I'm kind of tired of being on Twitter, so trying to get the voice out there. So certainly love being on with you guys. I know you have a huge following, and after the weekend and the start with the Sens, I know everyone's feeling great. So pumped to be on with the boys.
Oh, I just feel good hearing your voice again, too. Peel back the curtain, though. What'd you get up to this summer?
Well, you know what? It was pretty interesting. I ended up having the whole summer not to do a whole lot. So finished off the backyard, did a little work on the basement, did a little garage time, did a little traveling, sat around and twiddled my thumbs and wondered what the hell the future is going to bring. I think some people take the approach that when you have this and you kind of have time off and everything else, you just sit, kick back and relax and, you know, the world's awesome. I'm kind of the opposite. I sit there and just wonder, what the hell's the future going to bring? What's this going to look like? So I enjoyed it. But at the same time, interestingly enough, after covering the Sens for 11 years and being in training camps the last 38 years, I really missed it. But at the same time, I was just pumped for the season to get going. You could feel where the team was going, but I missed hockey. I guess it really showed me even covering, and not that you don't appreciate it, but I just realized, man, oh man, do I ever miss doing this? And at the same time right now, sit back and kind of be a fan and just enjoy the ride.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you on our show, Simmer. It's been a long time coming for sure. So opening weekend was a smashing success for the Ottawa Senators. What's kind of your overall view of the team and the atmosphere so far in this season?
Well, Brendan, I'll just deal with really off the ice. And I really think this started probably a year ago. You know, a lot of things that were happening with the organization, your realization of the sale, and then it is getting back to normal. And one, unfortunately for the Ottawa Senators and what's normal in a lot of other organizations, you don't even know what normal is. It had been so crazy under Eugene Melnyk that you look around and realize, well, it is normal to have Alfie and Phillips and Neil and the Finnegan family and recognizing that. So the timing of having someone like Van Lauer come in, when you bring in a Surreal leader, he knows all the touch of class, all the little things that have it firing on all cylinders. So from that experience, everything that's happened with the organization, what more can you say? And for the fans that have, you know, stood by it, and it's been a rough road, you mix in the rebuild, and again, covering and understanding everything that went on, I just thought to myself, hey, I worked for Washington, I worked for Toronto, I wasn't with the media, but this isn't normal. Winning and losing, okay, you can take that as a sports fan, pile on the rest of the stuff. So back to normal, back to best in class, and then all of a sudden you have a team that certainly is on the rise. So I was just excited for the fans to sit back and enjoy this. And once again, I guess for you guys or anybody else, just the ability to pump out your chest. You know, you've taken a lot of abuse here over the years. It has not been a lot of fun to be a Sens fan. For the loyal guys like yourselves and lots of other people out there, it's just one of those moments that comes along and you just say, thanks God, let's just enjoy this bad boy.
Well, that's the thing, and that's what actually made me even more upset when we found out that you weren't going to be with TSN anymore. I was like, come on, man. He's been through the darkest of dark days with the organization and covering it every day and waking up. What time was your alarm when you were in the morning show?
You know what? I usually get up at 4:30. You know, get ready, head in, do a little TV hit, and then do the show. And yeah, it ended up being a great routine. And I agree with you, you know, because it really was. And behind the scenes, you know, and I'm so thankful for JR and, you know, being able to have an opinion. There were some rocky roads there along the way. At times, people don't want the truth. I've always said, hey, I don't come at this as far as negativity. I mean, you try to be positive. I just try to give an honest opinion here based on my professional experience. So yeah, I was kind of like, this is going to to be fun to have an opportunity not only to cover because of what's changed, but also understanding that, hey, this is a real good hockey team. So we'll see what the future brings. But certainly nothing but thankful for my time at TSN. And you also recognize, guys, you don't look at this and be like, oh my God, I'm mad at somebody or this. Hey, this is the way the industry's working. These are where the times are at. And, every day that I went to work, I realized sincerely, you're like, okay, this is interesting, but you also understand kind of the economics of all of it. So you push on, you be thankful, and hey, we'll see what the next door that opens up.
Well, you should be getting some royalties because they're still using your advertisement inside the rink. I saw on the big warnings TSN 1200. It's you and JR.
Yeah, hopefully they don't clean that up too soon. The problem in the studios there, they just can shift you right out. It's just the next day you're gone. It's like you never existed. They're like Steve Lloyd slides in. I'm like, jeepers, what happened to me? But that's the way it goes. I'm just teasing. But hey, like I said, you know what is also interesting, guys? I've been through this before in my life, so you kind of understand behind the scenes what's going to happen. You understand that, I'm not expecting, hey, you have your friends, you have your people. It doesn't have to be a pity party or anything else. You just move on and be thankful for the time that you end up having.
Yeah, totally. No, we appreciate it. It's great here in the end. Hey, like all these little, intricacies that make you and everything. So it's great to be able to chat with you. I feel like this isn't going to be the last time we have you with us, but I do want to get into the nitty gritty of the Ottawa Senators because, as you mentioned, you have experience on the management side. You have experience around the team as someone who's seen the Senators team kind of grow. And we saw on your Twitter this morning, TSN Simmer still. Got, the core here that you said's untouchable.
Yeah.
How outside of those names, and we'll pull them up here momentarily for those who are watching on YouTube, like outside of that, how far are you willing to go here to make some cap space?
Well, you know what, guys? And again, this is, I guess, one of the problems with Twitter. And you put out little things. I mean that in relevance to trying to bring Shane Pinto back. I'm not going through a list there. I understand that Claude Giroux is going to probably finish his career here. I look at a guy like Batherson, some of the guys you're going through. All I'm saying is right now you've got a good core here. What's your core going forward? And I guess even with Matthew Joseph playing the way he is and you got him under contract, that's what I see as the group going forward. So I'm not saying untouchable when you start to go through this. Certainly you would look at Stutz, look at Chuck, and then after that, well, let's be realistic. If a trade ever came down, you're going to end up doing something if you have to make a move. All I'm saying is that when you start to look at the core, when you look at the emergence of Ridley Gregg, the way that Joseph is playing right now is back to the player from a few years ago. You want to win now. You want to win the next couple of years. If you're trying to bring Pinto back, I certainly don't want to touch any of that group to kind of have forward progress. That's really all I mean. And then people started asking, what about Sanderson? Well, obviously that's an obvious. You'd like to get Chychrun extended probably this summer. Zub is under contract. We'll see what happens with Thomas Chabot, but it's just more pointing out I think he got something good going here. I like chemistry. I like cohesion and kind of excited to see Norris hopefully hop in with Kubalik and Batherson and see what you got there on a nice second line.
Now, with all your experience in management throughout your post-playing career, I wanted to get your opinion on kind of the facelift that the Ottawa Senators executive management group is getting here. They bring in Steve Staios as president of hockey operations, a job that has been vacant for far too long. Pierre Dorion even saying he's been begging for help, and finally he gets it. You bring in Sean Tierney to help in the analytics department. What do these moves kind of mean for the Sens management moving forward here?
Well, all it means, Brendan, is it's normal. And as far as Pierre Dorion, again, go back to Pierre Maguire, okay? And I had intimate knowledge of how this all went down. Pierre Maguire came in, and I like Pierre. He's a good hockey man. He was hired by Eugene Melnyk. He needed, and Pierre Dorion means that sincerely, that thing was never going to work. It's not the way you end up doing it. Now, in this particular process, it seems right, but it's just normal. It's normal now. You see teams that have a two-headed monster. Forget about titles. It's really just what your job ends up being. So what are the Ottawa Senators doing? They're getting back to normal. They're doing what other teams are doing in the National Hockey League, having a strong front office, getting involved in analytics. Now you hope the next phase that kind of, the little bit of a trickle down is improving on the pro scouting side. But as far as the way it's done, it has to be done properly, I guess, to the point. You don't all of a sudden have somebody show up in the middle of the night like a Pierre Maguire and expect that that's going to work with Pierre Dorion. New owner comes in, I think, and I pointed this out on Steve Staios back last November. keep an eye on this fella. So I think Pierre Dorion, if it's approached and understood, hey, we're coming into work together. Nobody's trying to take your job here. You set up shop. You've got an owner. You've got a president that's away from that. Now you got a president of hockey operations, and you bring other people. And the big thing is everyone understands who they're answering to. What is the chain of command? How does this all work? Is everyone pulling on the same rope and working together? And if they're not, get your ass out of here.
Hope you're enjoying our chat with Simmer. We'll get right back to it. But first, a word from our friends at FanDuel.
FanDuel is the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and they're North America's #1 sportsbook. And Pilsy's parlay of the day is starting off hot, just like your Ottawa Senators. Same record, 2-1. Hit both parlays for the home games this weekend. It was an absolute blast. And you can get in on the action too by joining FanDuel, especially if you're a new customer. You can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. I'll say it again. That's $200 in bonus bets. And here's the kicker: win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. And the app is so easy to use. Even a guy like me can use it. So obviously you guys can as well. It's simple, secure, and safe. You can bet on so many different options like spreads. We had the Ottawa Senators winning in regulation. The first game, that one hit. Player props, I had Brady Tkachuk over 3.5 shots on Sunday. That one hit. Over-under, we had the over-under on both games and more. So you can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Shawarma Palace. I still have that beautiful garlic breath after I had
me too, Ross.
my extra garlic. It was so delicious yesterday. And you can go visit Shawarma Palace at any of their 7 Ottawa locations. It's the only place to go in Ottawa for shawarma since 1997. Started with 1, and now it's 7 stores. Just speaks to how amazing the food is. They always make sure that your portion size is plentiful. They've got great deals on Uber Eats. I got the buy one, get one free for the garlic potatoes, the Greek salad. So always go check out what they have to offer at Shawarma Palace. If you're getting the platter, I always get the extra garlic. The hummus was so fresh. They had the pita. Everything was so delicious, delivered right to our door. It's a perfect hangover cure. Or if you're just hungry, you want to get to Shawarma Palace. So go visit them today. Go eat like a royal. Go eat at Shawarma Palace. All right, now back to our chat with Simmer. Well, I've got I don't know how much you can say about this, but I'm curious about what you can. Back in 2018, the darkest of dark days of the rebuild, you had a 5-hour meeting with Pierre Dorion, potential AGM role. What was kind of the basis of that, or how much can you expand on what they're looking for when they were looking to expand at that time?
Well, you know what? And I've known Pierre for a long time, and a bit of a backstory. I grew up in Orleans, so the Pierre Dorion family's from there, and his father actually was the director of Central Scouting the year I got drafted in the National Hockey League. So I know Pierre Sr. and had traveled around with Pierre for years and always was very friendly, got along with him great. As far as an interview, it was kind of a back and forth. I didn't feel realistically that was going to happen for me. I'm not saying I would have turned it down. It was never offered to me. I didn't like, under the circumstance, what was going on there, but they were really looking for more of a contract person. I'm a hockey guy. I like to be out in the field. I like to be doing different things. So it was really a back and forth, and sit around. I was able to, and realize that in the position I was in, get a lot of great information. And it was just a pure back and forth. I was a little surprised in some of the things as far as, where Pierre kind of saw the stability of the franchise, where things were at kind of with the coaching staff and everything. But yeah, it was really, really open, really interested. And like I said, I always just had in the back of my mind the opportunity to realize, hey, probably going to stay in broadcasting, so it doesn't hurt. And I think this is one of the neat part, guys, in doing it the 11 years. From when I started in, I wasn't trying to be a shock jock, but it was certainly surprising to people how opinionated I was. Then, right up till the very end, I think people always looked at it that way. And I said to myself, listen, I knew Brian Murray. I came through with the Washington Capitals under the late, great Jack Button, Brian Murray, Terry Murray, David Poyle. One of the things we were taught to have an opinion. I always realized in the back of my mind, the Sens don't like my opinion being out there all the time. But what does it say to you when you're doing a job for 6-7 years and all of a sudden you get called in to interview for the assistant GM job? Do you not think that means they respect your opinion? What they don't like is they realize that, hey, it's out in the market and people also respect it. And to that, it becomes something that they got to push back against, which I've always understood. But I wish people would recognize that. How many media people get called in for 5 hours to interview for an assistant GM job when everybody says, oh, you're being negative all the time. But like I said, I knew coming in, that's the only way you can do it. Wouldn't be any fun to have done the job for 11 years if I didn't bring in a legitimate opinion. And like I said, really just kind of middle ground. I want the Sens to do well, not cheering for against anybody, not looking for anybody to lose their job. God knows I'm in that spot right now, and I've been it before. All I wanted to do is just be myself, and I absolutely love that part of it.
When did the quote tweets start coming out? Because that's a unique Simmer trait. You're not going to reply. You're going to make sure everybody sees each tweet. And hey, for better or worse, because hey, that's giving other people a platform as well. If you have 10 followers, Simmer's in the mix. But
I don't. You know what, Ross? I didn't know that it wasn't supposed to be that. I honestly, and somebody, I think Pierre LeBrun had commented on a couple of years ago. I didn't really realize that's what it meant. So I guess it causes me more trouble. One of the other things I've learned over the years, so this probably goes back to Bobby Ryan, when you bring out an opinion and people come back at you. One of the tricks I learned after Tarasenko had a decent weekend, and we'll get more into that, but I realized I got to throw out something positive here on Monday. just so my timeline goes a little quiet, and then people are accusing me like you're in love with Tarasenko and you've changed your mind. It's like, no, tactically I realized I just got to throw a little cream puff out there so people think you kind of acknowledge it. So like I said, that's the ins and out. But as far as the Twitter, that's the way it started. I don't know if I should correct it at some point, but hey, that's been the way I've done it.
Never.
I love that you're consistent with the quote tweets. And yeah, Simmer, one thing that I've kind of adopted, and I stole this from Brian Burke, is he likes to call it a positive sandwich. So start off quick positive, really hit that negative point in the middle, and then end off with another quick positive. So that way you're kind of you're not leading too far one way or another.
Oh yeah, no, as I said, and one of the great parts about doing the radio for 4 hours a day, you can expand on your opinions. Definitely. We totally understand. Nor do I have the time. Well, I have the time, but as far as Twitter, what you're throwing out there, what's being said, how it's you can't make all your full points. You're not going to sit there and type for hours. We're 4 hours. You can come around in conversation, let people understand exactly what you're thinking and where you're at.
With that, which opinion has gotten you not in the most trouble, but the most of a response, whether it's from, just your average Sens fan or somebody from the industry? Because you mentioned Bobby Ryan or somebody reaching out and being like, come on, you really had to go there?
You know what? Over the years, there's been certainly things that have come along, but I understand the politics of it. If I'm critical of a player, there are media people that kind of come after you, but I understand that's protecting the player, and they're probably friendly with the agent. Oh no, without a doubt, it was Bobby Ryan. I was new to it. Bobby's very popular. I understand when people love a player, and what's not to love about Bobby Ryan. That certainly was, and that was a bit of a wake up call, both on that, the pushback kind of against it, but also realizing at the end of the day that I was probably onto something and probably right at the end of the day. But that would have been, but you learn the lessons from it. You have the backing from it. And then the biggest part is as I've gone through this over the years, it just continues to reaffirm your confidence in your opinion. And I'm not going to say I'm sitting here 100% right, but I'll say after the last 11 years of doing this, I think people can realize, be like, you go back and forth. Or I think I made one comment on Claude Giroux last year that he looks like he's hit a bit of a rut. I love Claude Giroux. I love the sign, love that's happened. But if you kind of look at the body of the work, you can't guess over 11 years. You can't sit there and just pick one or the other. And that's the other part you realize. There's people that just love players, which I understand they're passionate about it, and they don't want to rock the boat. And then there's lots of people out there quite simply don't know. They don't know when they watch players. They kind of guess. They kind of hope. And like I said, I've certainly pegged kind of my reputation on that, and I have no problem with that. I have utmost confidence in when I look at players and the way I analyze the game based on the experience I end up having.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You got to go with your gut. And I think sometimes people feel like if you make a take, you have to die on that hill. You can't go back and forth. Well, there's things there. You can have a fluid take and it can go back and forth. You mentioned you've had a bit of a take on Tarasenko, but on Twitter, it's hard to expand on it. So you're here on our show, Simmer.
Yeah.
Expand on your thoughts on Tarasenko. Let's hear it.
Well, here's it going back to last year, guys, and I'd followed him in St. Louis because I know a lot of the people there, including Craig Berube, and there were times where I know he had issues with his conditioning, and then I watched him last year in the playoffs, and I thought, boy, the physical skills here don't look the same. So just followed up with some sources over the summer, and certainly my source in St. Louis, who had given me great information on Sanford, was dialed right in on Brady Tkachuk, had given me some kind of information and dialogue, and then, hey, just to be honest, I didn't expect it, but in training camp in that Carolina game, I really thought this is an older player that's just a shell of himself. Now he comes out, a couple of one-touch passes for assists, very smart. One ended up being a goal, which is a beautiful goal. Those are goal scorers' hands. Nice place by Greg. Another one from the corner that goes off of a toe and then into the slot there and it goes in. So what I was, I guess, saying is that I didn't expect this guy to do anything. What I'll also say, still have big time concerns. The pace of his shifts, his play within traffic, his ability in his own end is not very good. We'll see where it goes. But what I also recognize in open ice, able to do some things is certainly as far as hockey IQ and hockey sense. And I got to also give credit to the coaching staff. I thought in the 2 home games, they just deployed him perfectly. Perfect amount of ice time, hit away. You're able to get short shifts. And at the same time, who would have thought Ridley Gregg and Matthew Joseph with their speed and a young guy and Joseph having kind of a back season, who would have thought those would be the guys who would end up saving him? So that's where he's at right now. But as I said, I'm not also turning the page and thinking, oh, this is a guy from 5 years ago in St. Louis. Still some big time concerns, especially when you hit the road. But he had 4 points. He ended up helping them out. And you have to acknowledge that, boys. And as you said, Brendan, as well, it's like sitting in scouting meetings, more year to year. But if there's a guy that you loved in the draft and 2 years later, he's not a very good player, if you're sitting in the war room and still banging the drum, you're probably going to lose your job or look like a complete idiot. You have to recognize at a certain point, it ain't happening. Otherwise, it just makes you end up looking foolish. But this is a bit of a short term. Let's see where it's all going here. And let's, I guess, revisit on Tarasenko down the road.
Yeah, I call it the most misfitted line in hockey, but it seems to be working right now. Like Ridley Gregg's taken like 3 steps forward. He was just awesome on the forecheck and creating the box. But Tarasenko, I agree with you a little bit there in terms of made some decent plays. I love the pass to Chychrun early in that Philly.
Oh yeah.
That was awesome, right on the tee. And let's get your take on this because I've almost been dancing around. I said I'm giving it all till November. Like, Thomas Chabot's going to be a hot topic for the rest of this season and beyond because now it's like, hey, everyone else is elevating. But there are a few mistakes in the D zone, but is he making up for it enough offensively? Like, where are you at with him, or what do you want to see from him this year?
Well, here's the fun part, guys. And again, I think we're all guilty of this, whether you're a fan covering a team or working for a team. You kind of slot in players, and I'll go back to the Washington Capitals. We went through a huge rebuild, and, people would call about Peter Bonder, and I'm like, come on, this guy's a lifer. He's a Washington Capital, and you got to get out of your space. This is one of the beautiful parts with a new owner who's an absolute hockey, loves hockey. When Steve Staios comes in, he's going to look at things differently, but there's no doubt. And this isn't about being a whipping boy, but when you start to look at that first power play unit, what are they missing from last year early on? They're missing a guy like DeBrincat as far as the half wall. He was a quarterback on the power play. Right now, Chabot's the quarterback. He's got all this mobility. He's got some pretty good looks, nothing fancy and not a big shot. So you say to yourself, what do you need in that spot right now? You probably need the hammer. And that's going to be one of Chychrun or Sanderson. Then you start to say to yourself, as far as a left-handed shot, he wasn't a good defender on the left side. And what we're seeing on the right side, and I'll go back more to the Carolina game, that goal by Stahl had to be one of the funniest shifts I've ever seen from a defenseman where instead of posting up and waiting to defend on the play, you decide to loop the net waiting for a harder round to leave the zone. Then you come back around the net, pass the guy with the puck, and it's in. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know why they think he can play the right side. When you pinch into the neutral zone, you are in an absolutely awkward spot. One hand on the stick. It's a blind play. You're leverage and everything else. So I think it's legitimate, guys, when you start to look at it. And if also the owner of the hockey team, let's get in, forget about salary caps. This guy next year is going to start making $10 million. $10 million. If this guy's not running your power play, not getting you 60 or 70 points, that's $10 million hockey player. So there, without a doubt, Roscoe, I think there's no, hey, you raise the question and you start to look at it and realize you got Sanderson and Zub. You want to have Chychrun here long term. Would it make more sense to have a right defenseman? I know other people have kind of talked about this at about $5 million. Well, I think it's something you look at. And like I said, this is when a Steve Staios or somebody comes in and recognizes, yeah, maybe this is different. Maybe here's a different set of eyes here and something you can start to look at as far as thinking a little bit outside the box. We've all been so fixated on Pinto on, is it Joseph? Is it Brandstrom? Is it Kubalik? Maybe you start to look at something a little bit bigger picture, and then you start to also say to yourself, and this is always really tough because I'm certainly sitting here as a broadcaster and living in Ottawa. What is the market for Thomas Chabot? I assume it's good, but what exactly is it if he's going to be a $10 million player next year?
I think that is an interesting point. I just pulled up, if you're watching on YouTube, his cap-friendly page. Thomas Chabot is due to make $38 million over the final 4 years of this contract. A 10-team no trade clause starts this upcoming.
That's the key. Yeah, that no trade kicking in next year.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's such like an ingrained part of the locker room, and you've been on that side too, Simmer. Like at this point, like the vibes, they finally they feel like they're at a point.
Yeah.
You really want to rock the boat by taking out a guy who's been a part of the core for so long.
Yeah, I never worry too much about that, guys. And again, each dynamic's different, though. And I'm not in the locker room. And if you felt like, hey, this guy absolutely has to stay, but at the end of the day, when you look at cores, you look at Brady Tkachuk, and he's gone through this with his father, you totally recognize at the end of the day, if we're doing stuff to make the hockey team better, if players under the process are sacrificed along the way, it's difficult. But if you're winning hockey games and you're ultimately winning a Stanley Cup, nobody's going to care. I see some of the comments even about Tarasenko, and if you moved him, the agents would be mad, and free agents in the future. That's not the way to do business, guys. You certainly deal with your own players coming through the system. Thomas Chabot, as you said, is very popular. But at the end of the day, you can't sacrifice that in a sense of you've got a real good core here. And if you feel like as a hockey group, and the players will never say it, I love Brady Tkachuk's approach. He loves all the players. They're Ottawa Senators. He loves what Shane Pinto is doing, trying to get a new contract. But at the end of the day, he also understands the business. And if there's things that have to be done, and I'll say this, there are times where management does make mistakes. You do bring the wrong players out. But if you do have a good pulse on the dressing room with the coaches, you have such a good young core that Ottawa has. If you end up having to sacrifice somebody along the way and don't have it in front of you, and I'm sure if you go back to most of the Stanley Cup champions, there's a pivotal trade that had to be made for a popular player just to take you to the next level.
Yeah, well, that all perfectly leads into my final question, Simmer. And this has been awesome having you on. I think
anytime, boys.
We got to get you as a recurring guest to get these takes out there in expanded form. But when you look at tough business decisions, cleaning up mistakes, and the core of the locker room, Shane Pinto is at the forefront of all of those things. And we put up a poll on Twitter at Sens Central, and this is a poll I'm pretty proud of, as it's pretty close. We got nearly 1,000 votes on this. And the question is, who has more leverage in contract negotiations right now, Shane Pinto or the Ottawa Senators? Now, I don't know if you've seen this yet, Simmer, but
no, I haven't, brother.
How do you think this poll is going?
Well, based on people chanting Pinto's name at the hockey game, I'm going to guess it goes a lot towards the player.
50.3% say Shane Pinto has the leverage. 49.7% say the Ottawa Senators has the leverage. So which side of that argument are you on?
I don't know what the leverage, I guess, to me swings to the player in a sense of there's contract negotiations, but this particular case was somehow a clerical oversight. Like, you've got a kid here who came off a shoulder surgery, slid into a number 2 spot when Norris was injured and gave you 20 goals. So I don't put it any fault on the player. All he, in this particular case, is probably looking for a fair deal. Him being told taking 1 year at 900 and come back, I don't think is fair. Now, as far as the leverage, you got to sign before December 1st. If Norris comes back and the team continues to play well, but the issue you're running into here, and this can happen, first of all, the next phase of this is the player quite simply saying, listen, you don't have room for me. Well, what am I supposed to do here? Why don't you move me along? Or without a doubt, okay, if you want me to sign a 1-year deal, we turn around and do something. I'm certainly going to remember that when we get towards free agency and the way I was treated here. So it has not been a great situation, and it's a very unique one. I said this many times. The Ottawa Senators are not doing cap gymnastics like Tampa and Toronto and, bringing on bad or old contracts of retired players. This is a simple mathematical error. And I really don't, at the end of the day, even sitting here, have a true resolution to you. When I put up the core yesterday, that was also the understanding. I don't know what's going to happen with Kubalik. He's certainly been a bit of a no-show 3 games in. I like him. But between he and Tarasenko, they're not part of the long-term future. So when you start to talk about moving players, what you're going to do to move things out, don't see Brandstrom in that same light either. Matthew Joseph, I probably say he is, and he's playing well, but that's as much to do with the contract and having a couple of years left. So I don't have a solution right now. All I know is that Shane Pinto in a 3 spot, slide Ridley Gregg over onto the wing. That's protection if a guy like Josh Norris goes out. And more than anything, he's a player that you bought through, that you've developed, and I think has a top 6 future. So if you get him on a decent deal going forward, that gives you flexibility if you have to make some other moves, and certainly gives you flexibility when the $5 million comes off in dead money, and at the same time the salary cap goes up next summer.
Sounds like a situation that's almost reached a boiling point. We look forward to figuring out what happens then. And man, just a great time hearing your voice back, Simmer. We will be reaching out to you sooner rather than later, get you back in the mix. It's been awesome chatting with you, and we look forward to the next time already.
Anytime, boys. As I said, really nice to just come on and get a little voice out after 4 months there. Needs a little work, but still, yeah, lots of fun to chat some hockey and keep up the passion it takes. Loving watching your shows, boys.
That's awesome. Can't thank you. Stick taps to Simmer for joining us. Really fun conversation, and looking forward to what's next for Shawn Simpson in the media world. Because hey, it's gonna be a good day when he pops back on the grid full time. Because he's a take machine, is what he is.
Yeah, you can expect a lot of quote tweets from Shawn Simpson moving forward here.
So funny. Okay, great. Final segment today's show. We want to talk a little bit about Shane Pinto. Put up a very contentious poll at Sens Central. What are we at right now?
I'm proud of this poll, Ross. This is a Pillsy poll here.
Whoa, 650 votes so far. We put it up about a half hour ago. 50.8% of the voters believe the Ottawa Senators hold more leverage in the negotiations right now against Shane Pinto, whereas 49.2% think that Shane Pinto holds that leverage. What side of the argument are you on?
I mean, it doesn't get much closer than that. You love to see a poll like that, Ross. I wanted to put this up to the fans because I had been flip-flopping all weekend, but now I'm with the majority here. I'm with the 50.8% of voters. The Ottawa Senators have more leverage. Look, they're 2-1 in the season. Josh Norris appears to be coming back into the mix. Ridley Gregg is a great line mate with Vladimir Tarasenko and Matthew Joseph. The irony that Ridley Gregg is having success with Joseph, the guy that's rumored to be the cap dump trade, and Vladimir Tarasenko, the guy that kind of caused this issue, is wild. And look, Rook Chartier, even if he needs to continue to keep playing for the Sens, he's looked great as well. So if you're Shane Pinto sitting at home, it's one of those situations where obviously you want your teammates to have success, but when you're watching the Senators put up wins and seemingly look like they can move forward without you, and you're an RFA with basically no, I'm surprised there's 49.4% in Shane Pinto's side here, because the Ottawa Senators can keep rolling on here without him as far as I'm concerned, and that's got to be tough for Pinto and his camp.
The deadline is December 1st at 5 p.m. If there's no contract signed with the Ottawa Senators or any team he's traded to, by then he has to sit out the entire season. Now, no team can offer sheet Shane Pinto because he hasn't reached the minimum required games played. You might remember he burned a year off his contract by playing those 12 games at the end of the COVID season, and then he missed all but 6 or 7 games. I think it might have been eight at tops, or I think Norris was 8 last year. I think it was
got it here, Ross. 5
games for Shane Pinto in the next season with injury. So yeah, he played all 82. It's great to see. Now, I actually agree with one of the comments on this post, because I don't know if that's really the problem here, right? The problem is Ottawa opening up money to do this. So George Thomas writes in saying the real leverage struggle is between Pierre Dorion and other general managers of what they're trying to squeeze out of him to make room for Shane Pinto to come back.
No, that's a great point. But the thing is, the Senators lost all leverage in cap trading situations when they brought Tarasenko in. Like that, every team knew, okay, they're up against the cap here. It's going to be a squeeze to get Pinto in. I guess the Ottawa Senators did that to kind of flex more leverage on Pinto, being like, hey, this is the cap space we have. You got to sign a deal with this. And that didn't happen. And now they're in a really tight spot. So this is going to be interesting, because if you're Shane Pinto, you're coming off a season where you played 82 games. You scored 20 goals. You had a chance to be in an elevated role since Josh Norris got hurt. You don't want to be sitting out an entire season as a 22-year-old, because that's going to affect your next contract. So, man. And Elliot Friedman reported, Ross, that there has been no confirmed reports that Shane Pinto and his camp have asked for a trade. So
that's the leverage that they would have. If they're like, hey, we're sick of this, send us.
But
he wants to be here. There's no doubt in my mind. Yeah. This is where the Nodak Sens come in. He knows how good Jake Sanderson is. He's seen it for 4 years.
Mhm.
He knows how good this core can be. He wants to be a part of it, as far as I'm concerned. Clearly, otherwise, I'm sure we would have had the trade rumors by then, at least, because there's been no real even rumors. Everyone's just understanding that something else has to give. And you made a great point on Thursday or Friday's show where it was like, hey, Kubalik might have to be that guy, the $2.5 million, but like, I don't know how you trade Matthew Joseph right now. The guy is red hot.
No, I don't think they're going to be doing that anymore, Ross. And I think too, the issue with Shane Pinto trying to say, "Hey, I want to trade to get some leverage." You just mentioned it. That a commenter. Maybe we should give them a shout out here. But
George Thomas.
There you go, George Thomas. Great point. If Shane Pinto goes to the Sens and is like, "Hey, I'm going to use my one leverage piece. I want to trade," Pierre Dorion's going to be like, "There's not a chance we're trading you. We have no leverage. The last thing we're going to do is trade a young 22-year-old centerman who's an RFA when every team in the league knows we have no other options and we can't move other salary cap dumps to get him to a place where we can sign him." So the last thing the Senators are going to do are try to move Shane Pinto when they have no leverage and they're going to be selling so low on this asset. So I think the Senators are going to just say, "Hey, unless I guess they got to move a player before they can even start agreeing to a deal here." So
that's the thing, and
it's like a double-edged sword. The Sens have all the leverage and no leverage at the same time because they have no leverage in moving a cap dump guy, but then they have all the leverage when it comes to picking how much Shane Pinto's contract is going to actually be when he does return, because Pinto cannot afford to sit this year out, in my mind. He can't do it.
There's 17 games total, including the 3 that they've played until the deadline of December 1st. But Pillsy, that's not the deadline for me. The deadline is November 12th, because if Shane Pinto is not on the plane to Sweden, we got big problems with the future of the organization. So I'm giving them less than a month, 3 weeks to figure it out. Hopefully sooner, but like, I'm even warming up to the fact that like you might have to put in a decent prospect and just bite the bullet, because what's the chance of said prospect becoming what Shane Pinto means to this team? Like, you almost understand, like, it's the price that you messed up.
Exactly. That's the thing. You shot yourself in the foot, and now you're walking around with that bullet wound. So that's what you got to do. And the thing is, Ross, let's say you have a prospect or a pick that you like, and you're like, "Okay, if we can't have Shane Pinto, we got this guy." Sure, but he's not going to be third line NHL center ready, that prospect or pick, probably for a couple of years now. So that's where it's tough if you decide to go that route.
On a completely different note, Tyler Boucher tweaked his groin 5 weeks ago and still hasn't played. But you can't send down an injured player. But he was cleared. The tweet said Tyler Boucher has been cleared and has been reassigned to Belleville. Hasn't practiced, hasn't played in 2 weeks with Belleville. I don't know what's going on.
Your guess is as good as mine, Ross. I don't know either.
And the rumor was that the Philadelphia Flyers would have taken Matthew Joseph if Tyler Boucher was in.
Of course.
Anyways, verbal meme, the guy who's like, hands up. I don't know. Something's got to give, though. It's got to be pretty stressful for the general manager right here, because he's got a crew of new superiors who are watching and very heavily judging, I would imagine, the next move that he makes.
Well, and it's like, I don't know if Anlauer was at Sunday's game or not. We didn't really kind of see him or hear anything about it. But even in Saturday's game, the "we want Pinto" chance while your team is winning, that's putting pressure.
Big player. They need to figure something out sooner rather than later. But we'll have discussions, obviously, if and when it happens, of where to move different guys. But, man, Ridley Gregg looks like an absolute NHLer. Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me. You mentioned Belleville quickly, so let's just touch on their first couple games. They started off the season with a 3-0 win. Mads Sogard gets his first AHL shutout, so shout out Mads. The second game, Ross, you and I were watching this Sunday afternoon. Belleville goes up 2-0. It's looking good, but Mando had a really, really tough game. Lehigh Valley Phantom scored 2 goals on 2 shots, and they end up winning that game. And Ross, Lehigh scored 3 shorthanded goals in this game.
Whoa, got to clean that up.
Yeah, that not, mind you, one of them was an empty netter, but still, like, The Senators go 1 for 6 on the power play while allowing 3 shorthanded goals. You're not going to win games that way. But the good news is obviously not a great game for Mando as he was pulled very early into the game. But Mads comes in and stops all 22 shots for the rest of the game. So he is perfect this season so far.
Great. And they'll have their home opener this Saturday. You can go get tickets there. Belleville Sens. Always a great atmosphere there. And the K train has arrived. Huge hit from Tyler Clever on Evan Poli in that game on Sunday. All right. For today, we say goodbye. We'll be back tomorrow right after the Sens morning skate to discuss what is next with Josh Norris, preview the game against the Washington Capitals, and a whole lot more. But for today, we say goodbye. Thanks to Simmer for joining us. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.